Thank you for joining us for this week's message at Crosswind Church. In part 1 of the series, Spark, we learned from the book of James that our words have enormous power, both to build and to destroy, and that we should learn to speak healing words, not hurtful words. If you have any questions about this message or about Crosswind Church, please contact us at info@crosswindchurch.net or visit our website, www.crosswindchurch.net.
Go ahead and grab your Bibles. We are starting a brand new sermon series today, and I'm so excited about it. And I'm going to tell you why I'm excited about it. First of all, I don't know if there is one single area of my life that this sermon series is going to. It's really going to challenge me personally. This is an area that I struggle in, and so God has been trying to teach me some things this morning. Even this morning as I was going over my message again. The thing, though, that I think is really neat about this is twofold. First of all, for those of us that are Jesus followers, this is not a suggestion. This is stuff that's imperative. We don't get an out. And it's one of those things that if we as a church can kind of wrap our heads around and incorporate into our lives, then I think it has the ability to draw just hordes of people to Christ by the way that we talk and communicate with one another. But the good thing is, if you're here today and you're not a follower of Jesus Christ, you don't buy into the Bible thing or whatever, the truths that we're going to present over the next 4 weeks throughout Scripture are going to be beneficial to you regardless of that. There's one thing, it's just neat. I'm just naive enough to believe that there's stuff in here for just about everybody. And so there's great truth in here, and especially if you're a Jesus follower, I think it has some great implications for our family. James chapter 3 is where we're going to be. Now, I can remember being a little child around the 4th of July. It happened every year. I loaded up in my grandpa's truck, and we drove down to the tent where they sold fireworks. Now, it wasn't there year-round. It was there just for a couple hours, for a little while, for a couple days during the year. It was there at Burger King in Hopkinsville. It was there in front of the mall. It was all over the place. The fireworks were always sold by some guy named like Crazy Eddie or Three Finger Bill or something like that. And they sold you these fireworks and you'd go get them. Now, every year from toddler going up, I can remember we'd go with my grandpa and we'd spend $40-50 on fireworks, and I had these delusions of grandeur, right? Like I knew every year, this was going to be the year we're going to put together the best fireworks show in the history of fireworks shows. Like CNN is going to want to be at my house to record this. When we do the grand finale, my grandmother is going to be like crying. My grandpa, who's in the Navy, is going to stand up and salute. Like it's just going to be one of those things. We're absolutely going to do it like they do it on the mall in Washington, D.C., or over the Statue of Liberty in New York Harbor. Statue of Liberty is not in Boston Harbor, New York. Anyway, there in New York. And when we're going to do it, and it's going to happen every year. And so we go and we buy these fireworks. And then especially as a little kid, because my parents loved me, they didn't let me light them myself. I had to kind of go sit on the porch and watch them. And so we'd go out, and they would light these bottle rockets that we bought. That's it. I remember sitting on the front porch being like, that was way too expensive for a little, like nothing. Where's the big lights? Where's the shapes? I want the ones that make like the hearts in the sky, or a face of Snoopy or something. Like something we got to do. And then every now and then they bust out a Roman candle. And you get like the sparks and the little bit of light that comes out from it. And I remember as a kid just kind of sitting there thinking, how disappointing. Like, we spent all this money on these fireworks. I watched what happens on TV, and we can't even go close to that. And fireworks for me growing up was just incredibly disappointing. And the fireworks they made you play with as a kid, come on, right? I mean, when you're too little to light your own and that sort of stuff, they buy you like those little things that are like snap pops. You know what I'm talking about? They come in like a yellow box. It's like just snap on the front, right? And you get like 2 dozen of them. They're basically little pieces of some gunpowder wrapped in a little white peck. And you like, after you scare your mom a couple times, it kind of turns then into like a war where you throw them at people, but they don't pop when they land on people. It just pops off their clothes and pops them. And it's just no fun at all. I didn't like those at all. And what's with those little snake things? Those little black snakes. They call them like the black mambas or whatever. You know what I'm talking about? I mean, what genius came up with this, right? And we sell them and give them to kids. Basically, they look like a little pill. You put it on the ground and you light it on fire and it grows. It turns into a big amorphous mass of carbon on your driveway. I mean, that's basically what it is. Here, kid, don't light this. What's it going to do? It's going to grow, right? That's what you do. It doesn't explode, no colors. It just happens. Sometimes you come back like 30 minutes later, still growing, right? Like, but you're long since over. And the toy that we were always given on the 4th of July as a kid that I didn't like, but as I've gotten older and started thinking about it, I realized that it was kind of pretty cool, was sparklers. Y'all remember getting sparklers? They're so cool now, we do them at weddings and stuff like that, right? But you can remember you're being a little kid and you're given a sparkler. Now, parents, let's talk for just a minute, please, about the sparklers, because there's something that I don't understand, especially as I've gotten older and I've become a parent. This is what I don't get. We spend 364 days of the year telling our children not to play with matches and not to play with fire. And the 4th of July comes and we give them a gunpowder infused rod, light it and go, wave it around the air. Why do we do that, right? I just don't understand. And we give them to like the youngest ones in the world, like these little toddlers running around with sparklers. Write your name in it. They can't write; they're 3, right? But nonetheless, we give them these little flaming sticks, right? That have these sparks and these flames on the ends of them. Do you know how dangerous that is? I know I'm like super paranoid dad at this point. That little blaze at the end, that little fire at the end, can burn upwards of 1,800 degrees. 1,800 degrees, and we give it to a toddler. Tell them to wave it around, right? No wonder that 7,000 emergency room visits are made every year from people playing with fireworks. Now, most of those not toddlers, most of them rednecks. But regardless, right? They're dangerous, aren't they? They're dangerous. There's no substantial evidence for the redneck toddler thing. I just made that up. Anyway, 7,000, though, is legit. A year, go to the ER for fireworks because they're dangerous. They can cause seriously bodily harm. And don't even get me started on the fires that they can start, right? I can remember being in Fort Worth, Texas. We lived there for 6 years, and it would come, like big droughts, and we would get word, don't shoot off fireworks this 4th of July because it could start a big, big, big fire. Have you guys ever experienced fire? Maybe a house fire? Car fire, camp fire, right? Maybe you've experienced a fire of some kind. What are the things that stick in your mind? Is it the smoke, the smell, the sights, the warmth, the destruction? I can remember when we were in Texas, we served at Wedgwood Baptist Church, and my responsibility were these young adult singles. And they were ministering. I wasn't really helping organize it. They were ministering in a apartment complex that had a lot of refugees in it, and they were leading Bible studies there. A couple of them had moved into that apartment complex to help minister to those folks there. And in the middle of the night, one night, we got a phone call that a number of the units had burned down, like completely gone. Others had suffered all kinds of smoke damage. And one of the things that we did to try to reach out to them and help them and minister to them is we went and we got all of their clothes. And we rented out a laundromat. We threw an all-nighter at the laundromat, and we washed their clothes once, twice, and 3 times, just trying to get that smell out. If you've ever smelled it, it never goes away, right? That smell that you get when something has smoke damage or has been burned or is charred, it makes it like going to a campfire. It makes it seem like child's play. Fire is destructive. It's dangerous. It leaves lasting effects. And once something has been burned, it's never the same again. Once something has experienced fire, it's changed forever. Fire is extremely, 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 extremely powerful. Can I just tell you something? Inside of every single one of us is that same power. That power to build up, that power to destroy, that pure power to change. And the book of James is going to tell us that power comes from our words. That power comes from our tongues. And as followers of Jesus, it's imperative that we learn how to speak healing words rather than hurtful words. And so for the next 4 weeks, we're going to talk a little bit about that. But we're going to start in the book of James, chapter 3. And I want to read read to you, not from you, read for you, beginning in verse 3. But if we put bits into the mouths of horses so that they obey us, we guide their whole bodies as well. Look at the ships also. Though they are so large and are driven by strong winds, they are guided by a very small rudder wherever the will of the pilot directs. So also the tongue is a small member, yet it boasts of great things. I want to stop right there and talk a little bit about what's going on here. James begins chapter 3 by talking about teachers. In fact, what he says is not all of you should want to be teachers, because we should know that we as teachers are held to a higher standard. And what he's getting at in context is this. When we stand up in big group settings like this, or when we stand up in smaller group settings like our financial class on Sunday night, or when we sit across one-on-one from one individual or another, and we talk to them and we use our words, the words that we speak have incredible power. From the mouth of preachers, revivals and awakenings have begun. And from the mouths of preachers, entire congregations have been led to the gates of hell. You tracking with me? What we have to realize as teachers and as individuals who are given our words and are given our tongue, we have to recognize that it is an incredibly powerful gift, something that need not be taken lightly, and something that really ought to be taken and handled very carefully. He then uses a couple of illustrations. He first talks about this horse, and he said, if you get a horse and you put the bit into the mouth, you can get the horse to obey you. Now, I'm not a great equestrian, right? In fact, I didn't ride a horse at all until I was an adult. I can remember when I was a youth minister in Pembroke. I'm sorry, they'll get on to you if you say it wrong. Pembroke, what is that? Kentucky. I was youth minister there, and we were hosting a Disciple Now event. And I went over to this guy's house. He was hosting middle school girls at his house. God bless him. And he trained horses. That was one of the things he did. And he found out I had never ridden a horse before. And so he saddled up his horse, his own personal horse, and brought her over to me. And I got up on her. And can I just tell you, if you ever ridden a horse, one of the things that maybe you've noticed, I certainly did, is just how powerful that animal is. I mean, you can see the muscle tone in their legs, and you sit on that horse, and it's just immensely, immensely powerful. And it was so amazing that this big, huge animal that really could have thrown me off of her back and stomped me to a bloody pulp there on the ground. All I had to do to move her was to pull on the rein to the right just a little bit. And pull on that bit, and she'd just go right to the right. And if I pull on left just a little bit, she'd just go right to the left. And I was amazed. I was amazed at what James says here is so true. Such a strong, powerful animal can be controlled with just a really small bit that goes in the horse's mouth. And then he uses another one, just in case you didn't get it from that illustration. Let's talk about ships. Let's talk about boats. Let's talk about when you get out on the Mediterranean Sea and you're traveling from one place to another and you get on a boat. What you need to understand is that though the winds drive the boat, though the winds may push the boat one way or the other, ultimately what directs the boat is a very small rudder. A very small rudder that the captain of the ship can control where the boat goes, no matter how strong the winds are, no matter where it may push you. I don't know if you all have gotten an opportunity to go to Discovery Park and see the Titanic exhibit. One of my favorite pictures in the whole exhibit was a picture of some men standing by the big propellers that propelled the boat all the way through the water. Such huge, big props. And there right by them, these rudders that would help steer the ship. That should have helped a little better. Steer the ship, right? Maybe a little sooner, steer the ship. But regardless of that, right? And they're so big. But when you think about how big those rudders are in compared to the entire ship, I mean, they're minuscule, they're small, they're just a small part, yet those rudders are so incredibly important. Those rudders can mean the difference between life and death. Those rudders can direct that entire ship where it wants it to go, no matter how strong the winds, no matter how ferocious the waves. The rudders can direct the ship. And then James makes this statement. So also, the tongue is a small member. The tongue is just a small part of your body, but it makes great boasts. Let me kind of break this down and tell you what I think James is saying here. In the same way that a rudder moves a ship, or the bit in a horse's mouth can steer a large animal, so your tongue has the ability to direct your life. So your tongue has an ability to move you in certain places, in certain relationships, and in certain circumstances. And I'll even go a step farther because we know it to be true. Not only does it have the ability to control me, but it also has the ability to control others. It also has the ability to affect others in the same way it has the ability to affect me. James is going to go on. He's going to try to explain this a little more. Look what he says in the second half of verse 5 and following. How great a forest is set ablaze by such a small fire. And the tongue is a fire, a world of unrighteousness. The tongue is set among our members, staining the whole body, setting on fire the entire course of life, and set on fire by hell. Wow, that's not very pleasant, is it? Right? And I was thinking through this last week and did some research to look at forest fires in the United States of America, and found that, I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget, that the year 2000 was one of the worst years in the United States of America for forest fires. In fact, in the spring and summer of the year 2000, there were about 7.2 million acres in the United States that were destroyed by fires. Primarily hitting the states of Alaska, Idaho, New Mexico, Nevada, and Oregon. These fires would begin and just burn. In some places, not only destroying land, but destroying property, having people kind of have to leave their home. In that spring and summer, 80,000 people had to be evacuated from their home. 80,000 people. Just wrap your head around that. That's about 8 times the population of Union City. Displaced from their homes because of fire. Now, we could probably go and search all the records, and we could probably go and talk to the park rangers, and we could maybe figure out exactly what caused every fire. But can I tell you, I already know without looking. It was just a small spark. May have been a bolt of lightning. It may have been that cigarette butt that was thrown out. It may have been that little ember that came off of a campfire that no one was watching. It may have been a lighter from somebody setting an arson, some arson setting a fire, but either way, it was not a big fire that destroyed millions of acres when it started. It was just a small, small, small flame. And what James wants you to understand is this. Your words are not merely words. Your words have the ability to destroy your life and the lives of everyone that comes in contact with your words. It's just a spark. But consider what a great forest is set ablaze, he says, by such small spark. You know how to be true, don't you? Come on. We've been on that end of receiving things, haven't we? We've had people say things to us that were hurtful. Had people do things to us that were hurtful. And it was something that was momentary. It was just a small little word. It was just a small little sentence. But it was something that penetrated right to the heart of who we are and changed us. Changed us. John Eldridge wrote a book called Wild at Heart, in which he talks about men. He says one of the things we have to understand as men is that we carry wounds with us. Wounds that are caused by words most often. Wounds that were caused a lot of times by people that really cared about you, really loved you, really didn't want to hurt you, but nonetheless hurt you anyway. I want to tell you about one of mine today. It's kind of silly now when I think about it, but it still kind of hurts a little bit. When I was in the 8th grade, baseball was all I played. Too short to play basketball, too small to play football, right? And so baseball was really kind of where I got to play sports, and I really kind of got to express myself athletically. I was small and short, so I had less wind resistance, is what I said. So I was a little faster than folks, and because of that, I didn't have to hit the ball very far. And then my grandpa hit me literally thousands and thousands and thousands of fly balls and ground balls in his backyard, and so I became a pretty good defender and loved playing baseball, loved the games. In fact, if you were like, Powell, let's go get a ball and throw in the backyard right now, I'd be all over. In fact, married a woman who played softball because she could throw the ball with me on the quad at Sanford. I'm telling you right now, that's something serious. Like, I love the game. And in the 8th grade, they allowed us to try out for the high school team. There were about a dozen, maybe 15 of us that tried out. They were only going to take 5. There was only spots for 5 8th graders on the high school team at my high school. And so I went and I tried out, and I hustled. What I made up for, what I lacked in physical ability, I made up for it and hustled. First one on the field, last one off the field. Like, I was just go, 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 go the whole time. And I can remember after a week or two, the tryouts were insanely long. After a couple weeks, the coach came to me. I won't tell you his name. You wouldn't know him anyway. But anyway, he came to me, and we were kind of talking. I was picking up baseballs or doing something else. And he said, Jeremy, I need to talk to you. And he pulled me aside, and he said, listen, man, I wish I had all the players hustled like you. I was like, thank you, coach, thank you. And man, listen, you don't have a lot of power, but as far as like consistently putting the bat on the ball, man, you're better than, like, you're just better than most of the people out here. I was like, thank you, coach, I really appreciate that. And he said, and listen, I was really trying to hit the ball past you when you were playing second base the other day, and I couldn't hit it past you. Like, you're a pretty good defender too. And I was like, thank you, coach, I appreciate that. I'm feeling pretty good about myself at this point, right? Because it's only taken five middle schoolers, and so far, he's talking me up pretty good. And then he made this statement. He said, but I got to be honest with you, man, you're just too small. You're too short. I'm going to have to cut you. I was shocked. I was really taken back by that. Not that I felt like I deserved to make the team over everybody else, but to cut me for something that I can't help. Something that I have no control over, no say over. That hurt me more than I could ever possibly imagine. Maybe that's why I want to prove myself so much today. I don't know. But he told me that, and I never, ever, ever, ever tried out for baseball again. It's done. It's done. His words. Maybe even an attempt to make me being cut feel better. I don't know. Maybe he was just trying to do something right. Those words left an impact on me that changed the course of my life. And I never played baseball for our high school. I never tried out for them again. One of the stories that Jody loves to tell is a story when she was little. One of the things, I guess it happens around here too, that happens in Alabama, and that is pageant season rolls around. Everybody starts doing pageants, right? Now, if you do pageants, that's awesome. I'm so glad you did. I'm just going to tell you one thing real quick. I don't understand pageants. As a guy who didn't grow up doing pageants, I don't understand them because we pay a bunch of money and everybody cries, right? Even the winner cries. I don't get it, okay? But that's what we did. And so the pageant circuit was kind of rolling around. They're big fundraisers for the schools. And I can remember Jody telling the story. She wanted to be in the pageant. She had been in the pageant the year before. And her dad, just in an effort to avoid the hassle of having to go to a pageant, looked at her and said, "I'll give you $50 if you won't be in the pageant." Now, let me tell you something about my father-in-law. Awesome man. Loves his daughter more than anything. Wouldn't ever intentionally do anything to hurt her in a million years. But those words to her, you know what she heard? You're not pretty enough to be in the pageant. You're not good enough to be in the pageant. And those words left an indelible mark on her as she took that money to not be in that pageant. Those words caused a wound in her. And those words that coach said to me caused a wound in me that we carried around for years. And listen, we just know that to be true, don't we? People have said things about you. They've said things to you, haven't they? And they've hurt. And although it was a momentary word, and although they may not have meant anything by it, it was a wound that stabbed you right to the heart, right to the core of who you were, and it changed your trajectory, didn't it? There's something about what they said that made something different in your life. That's what James is trying to get at here. You need to understand your words are so powerful that they not only can move you, change you, redirect you, but they can also do the same thing for the people that are around you. It's just a spark, but it causes a great big forest fire. I struggle with this. See, I had an uncle when I was growing up, and he was kind of known for just kind of saying what he wanted to say, right? He was kind of known for just saying, "You want my opinion? I'm going to give you my opinion. Whether you like it or not, I don't really care," right? I just go, and I actually grew up kind of thinking that was like a good trait. Now, I maybe inherited some of that trait. And can I tell you, nothing frustrates me more than not wanting to hurt somebody with my words and me still hurting them. Me not wanting to come across in a bad way, but still coming across in a bad way. It breaks my heart. My wife and I are renovating a house right now, which is maybe going to be one of the biggest tests of our marriage ever. And I got to thinking about this actually last night. I was pulling staples out of the floor, and she was upstairs painting, and I'm more of a show pony, not a workhorse, right? And so I'm getting calluses on my hands, and my back is hurting, and that kind of stuff. And I got to thinking about all of the pain that my body was experiencing just doing this little bit of manual labor. Not a lot, just a little bit of manual labor that I'm having to do, like having to climb ladders and stuff like that. Good grief. And yesterday, in the midst of all of that renovation, Jody and I got into a fight. Not a heated discussion, a fight. And can I just tell you something? The words that I spoke to her, and some of the words she spoke to me, although I spoke more of those words to her, were much more painful than any kind of physical ailment that I could have experienced working on the house. And I regret every bit of it. If we're not careful, our tongues will lash out flames and sparks that can destroy and cause wounds and redirect the lives of other people. We must be aware we have a great power in our mouths. We have a great power with our words. Look what he goes on to say. Verse 7. He says this, for every kind of beast and bird and reptile and sea creature can be tamed and has been tamed by mankind. But no human being can tame the tongue. It is a restless evil full of deadly poison. Look at verse 9, I love this. With it we bless our Lord and Father, and with it we curse people who are made in the likeness of God. Can I tell you something, what James is getting at here? He's saying there's a conflict in your life. If you walk into church on Sunday morning and offer up praises to God with the same tongue that yesterday you cussed somebody out with. He said there's a conflict. There's a tension. You can't have it that way. Right? It ought not be that way. And look what he says at the end of verse 9. I love this. And with it we curse people who are made in the what? Likeness of God. Now you want to get me fighting mad, say something about my girls. Think about this. Those that have kids, think about that. You want to get me mad, go and insult my girls. Go and insult your children, right? Mama bear, Papa bear is going to come out, right? And we're going to defend that little child. Why? Because that little child is ours, belongs to us, is precious to us. How dare you say anything bad about that child that we care so deeply about now, Christians? How much more does God hate it when we say things about His creation? When we say things about people who carry the image of God? When we say things about His children who He loves and who He cares about? How much more does God hate that? And yet we do it all the time, don't we? We think it's okay, though, when we say things like, with all due respect, or bless their heart. But it's not okay. It's not okay. I'm going to read the rest of this. He says this, verse 10. For from the same mouth come blessing and cursing, my brothers. These things ought not be so. Does a spring pour forth from the same opening both fresh and salt water? And can a fig tree, my brothers, bear olives, or a grapevine produce figs? Neither can salt pond yield fresh water. What he's getting at is this. Look, it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be that we turn and we put down someone else made in the image of God and then come and offer praises to God for what a wonderful creator He is. You can't do that. Someone, as my grandma says, is lying. Right? Either one is true or the other is true. They can't both be true. But sometimes it's not true. We get a little angry. We get a little frustrated. And all of a sudden what really resides deep in our heart comes out of our mouth. We say things that we say we don't mean, and we say things that are hurtful to other people, or we spread a rumor or a gossip about someone else. And we end up redirecting our lives and theirs in the process. So where do we begin with this? Where to begin as followers of Jesus? There's two things that we're going to talk about, one today and one next week. See, ultimately what the Bible is going to tell us is that what comes out of your mouth comes from your heart. What springs out of your mouth comes from your heart. And so if you've ever said one of those things like where it comes out of your mouth and all of a sudden you go, oops, where did that come from? Right? Oops, where did that go? Well, the Bible tells us it comes from your heart. Right? It comes from your heart. And unless we address the heart issue, nothing else matters. So next week we're going to talk about the heart issue that causes us to say things we don't mean. Right? Which really reside deep down in our hearts. We're going to have to deal with some of those monsters that kind of lurk in there, like anger and jealousy. The other thing that we can begin to do is we can begin to actually just kind of think before we speak. We can begin to just kind of put up some filters. You know those things that you hold over your mouth so that certain words don't come out, right? It's that filter that you've hopefully all put there so that you don't ask a woman when her baby is due when you're not certain she's pregnant. Right? That's a filter. That's a filter. We've got to learn to put up some more of those filters. Let me give you some advice today. Let's see if I can just kind of give you some filters that might be able to help, some questions you can ask that might be able to help. First of all, I need you to do your best to find your phrase. You know it if gossip is a problem for you. You know it if you like to talk about other people. You know it, right? If you don't know it, don't ask your spouse because you won't like it very much. Ask your best friend, okay? They'll tell you, okay? There are always people, like the neighborhood informers, Maybe some of y'all have that. I just moved to a new neighborhood. I'm hoping there's a neighborhood informer, right? That knows everything that's going on in the neighborhood and can kind of tell you about all of it, right? You know that person? Or maybe there's people in this church, right, who you just don't want to go to their home group because heaven forbid you share something and they go and they share it with somebody else, right? You know that. I've had community groups at previous churches that didn't form because there was one person in it. That's just kind of a known gossip. Okay, so what I need you to do is that's your problem. If that's kind of where you struggle, I want you to find your phrase, because we all have a phrase, right? Those of us that like gossip, like to get to know, we kind of have a phrase. It's something along the lines of, hey, have you heard? Or hey, do you know? Or hey, did you get the message, right? Or something along the lines of, oh, listen, bless their heart, bud. Right? Right? It's some kind of phrase that you kind of use. Figure out what that is, and when it comes out of your mouth, shut it down. Whatever's going to come after that, it's not worth it. Just shut it down. Right? For some of you, your phrase is, hey, I want to share a prayer request with you. Can I tell you something? I've been blessed to be a part of 6 churches, serving 5 of them, been to prayer meetings in every single one of them, and they should just rename it from prayer meeting to gossip meeting. Because we spend a lot of time talking about people and not a lot of time praying for them. Happens in every church, right? It's just true. But we think it's okay if we couch it in prayer request. Prayer request form. No, just please pray for them because they're having a really hard time, right? Come on. If you're really wanting to share a prayer request, that's awesome. But at the core of it, let's be honest, a lot of times it's just gossip. Find out what your little phrase is, and then when it comes out of your mouth, just shut it down. Give your spouse, give your best friend permission, just go, hey, shut it down, right? The other thing is I want you to ask yourself 4 questions. And this is not mine. I got this from somewhere else. I don't even remember where I got it from, but it's so incredibly helpful. And if your pastor could learn how to put this into practice in his own life, the world would be a better place. The first thing that you have to ask when you start talking is it true? Is what I'm about to say true? And when I mean true, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help me God kind of truth. Because let me tell you what causes hurt. Half-truths. Let me tell you what causes hurt. Part of the truth. Let me tell you what starts internet rumors. Part of the truth. Right? We need to learn to ask ourselves, is what I'm about to say true and the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help me God kind of truth? You with me? Is it true? The second thing that I want you guys to ask yourself the question is it necessary? Because there are times where you may know something, but it ain't necessary to share it. You may know something, but it's not worth kind of letting it come out. You know, this is a trait that we all have inside of us. It's that trait that kind of we want to know, we want to be in the know, we don't want to be left in the dark, we kind of want to know, we kind of want to know. And you know where this trait is often seen? It's kind of humorous. This trait is often seen in children around Christmas time. Especially when you start telling them what you're getting someone for Christmas. Because once they know, they just go, that's true, but maybe it's not necessary, but they want to get it out. One of my favorite stories about my wife occurred. In fact, she reminded me of it last night. It occurred when she was little. Her brother, who's 7 years older than her, had made their dad a gift for Christmas. He had made an ashtray for their dad. This was back when we thought cigarettes had like vitamin C in them and stuff. But so he gave him an ashtray and he wrapped it up for Christmas. He had worked so hard on it, and Jody knew what it was in the package, and she was so excited because she knew, so excited she knew. And my father-in-law goes to open it, and he starts opening it. He doesn't even get the paper all the way off one layer. Jody's like, it's an ashtray! Right? We see it in kids, and we laugh about it with kids, but it's true with us, isn't it? We get a little bit of information, and there's something inside of us. I wonder who needs to know that. I wonder who's around that I could talk to about that. I wonder who I could share that with. And then before you know it, something that's true but not necessary has come out. Is it true? Is it necessary? The next one is it kind? Is it kind? Is it healing word or hurtful words? One of my favorite Bible verses that I have memorized, and I try to get every young couple to memorize it, is Proverbs 12:10. It says this: reckless words pierce like a sword, but the words of the wise bring healing. Reckless words pierce like a sword, but the words of the wise bring healing. The question, is it kind, should be kind of couched this way. Am I speaking healing words, or am I speaking hurtful words? Let me see if I can give you an example. We have a lot of teachers in here. My wife is a teacher. I know that there are times where you have kids that are in your class that are just absolute terrors. They won't sit still. They won't do what you ask them to do. Their mom and dad aren't supportive and don't help, right? There's no discipline anywhere. And I know that you get 1 or 2 kids every 10 years or so that are like that, right? And I know that may be true. And I know that it may even be necessary that for the next year you go to his next year's teacher or her next year's teacher and you say, hey, I need to talk to you about this kid. I know that some of that may be necessary and that you share some of that true information from one person to the next. But can I tell you something? You can share necessary and true information in a very unkind way. And the words you say and speak about that child may make the difference in him having a great year or another horrible year. It may go ahead and set an idea in the teacher's mind of the way he's going to be, and he doesn't have a chance before he even walks in the door. I just want to ask you, not only does it need to be true, not only does it need to be necessary, but we need to figure out how we can speak kind words to one another. And then the last but not least question, is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? Is it godly? Simple. Would Jesus be happy about what I'm saying? If Jesus were standing here, would he condone me talking about him in this way? Would he condone me speaking to that person in this way? Would he be proud of the way that I'm using the power he's given me in my tongue? Am I building up or am I tearing down? And if we can learn to kind of filter what it is that we're saying, then we can give our heart time to heal. We can give our heart time to deal with those issues that are really causing those words to come out of our mouths. We'll talk more about our heart next week. Will you be willing to recognize God has given you an amazing power? He's given you an amazing gift. And with great power comes great responsibility. We have been given our words. Will you speak healing words? Will you speak hurtful words? And let me tell you why this is so important. If we don't figure out how to get a hold of our language and our words, if we don't find a way to get a hold of our gossip problem and the way we use words in our life, if we don't do it, then we will leave in our wake lives filled with hurt, broken relationships, damaged hearts all along the way. Because when it comes out, it's just a spark. It's just a momentary kind of initial kind of thing. But what a great forest fire is set ablaze by a small, small spark. If we don't get it, we run the risk of alienating everyone else in our lives. And most importantly, if you're a follower of Jesus Christ, if we don't get a hold of this, we will continue to push people away from the church who need Jesus the most. Let me tell you something. There are people in this world who are sinners, of which I am one, and so are you. There are people in this world that struggle with all sorts of things that are ungodly and unbiblical and who need to be challenged and who need to grow. Listen, that's true. But can I tell you something? It may be true, and it may on some level be necessary, but if it's not kind, all we do is push people farther away from the gospel. All we do is push them farther away from the truth. All we do is alienate them even further. Christians, church, if we don't begin to understand this and wrap our heads around this, we run the risk of rendering the gospel ineffective in our community because of our tongues. It's that important, isn't it? So today, as Eric comes back up to sing just one more song, I want to just invite you. Maybe this is one of those moments where you need to go and find someone and grab their hand and come down and just ask their forgiveness for words that you said. Maybe it's time that you just kind of come down and say, okay, God, I know I've got a problem with gossip. I know I've got a problem with slander. I know I speak without thinking. I know that I don't allow my filters to be up. I know that I've got anger residing in my heart. And so, God, I pray that you would just begin that process in me of making me more like you so that I don't destroy relationships with my unchecked tongue. So that I don't alienate people and break hearts because of what it is that I say. Maybe you're just tired. Maybe in a lot of ways you're like me. And you know that this could be a problem. And you're trying to fix it, but maybe you feel like you're spinning your wheels. Maybe you need to just come down and just ask God to just change your heart. Maybe you need to come and ask Him again for His strength as you push through this trial. Maybe there's something else that's pressing in your life unrelated to your words or this sermon. Maybe you need to come and pray. Ask me to pray with you. Jody, someone to pray with you. Maybe you need to give your life to Jesus Christ for the first time today. However the Holy Spirit is prompting you and leading you, I invite you to respond.